Hello, welcome to The Honest Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to another faction reaction with a legend that is Matthew Gouldesborough.
Please.
There he is. Hey, Matthew, how are you? Well?
I'm good, I'm well. Are you good?
Tired. We talked about this off air.
We did.
But, yeah. Some people might not know, but I DJ'd till 3 o'clock in the morning last night. But that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter for all of you people watching on YouTube or listening to it as a podcast or watching it on Twitch right now because it's filmed in front of a live studio audience. And there's loads of great people in the chat like Smorgan and Tristan and Stabgrot Plus. Yeah, one of my favourite people. So thanks everyone for being here. We're obviously going to do a faction reaction on Lumineth Realm Lords. Matthew's a great person to do that because not only has he played all of like the kind of like Vanari, not like the classic Lumineth, Wave 1 Lumineth. He's also played a load and been very successful with a lot of the Wave 2 Lumineth. Obviously part of the Bad Moon Loons who won the Super Series. So like you've got loads of credence to talk about this. So I don't know. Are you excited about this? This is a pretty big one. I think this is going to be one of those ones that people are very excited about hearing about. You feel a lot of pressure there? How are you feeling?
I'm feeling the pressure here. You know, it's a big one, isn't it? It's a big faction. It's a very popular faction. So yeah, I think I'm ready though. I think I'm ready.
Okay, sweet. So let's talk about how they worked in Age of Sigmar 2. Do you want to talk to me about that?
So obviously, like, it's a bit of a weird one because like we had this brief window where we got all the Wave 2 stuff, but that, obviously, we were still in lockdown then, so that didn't really see a lot of play, like all with the new win stuff that you just mentioned and all that, until, like, recently. So look at, like, how they played before. It's sort of like you were technically playing half a book, so they sort of played with this... it was mainly this magic-focused, I want to say, like, it was a castle build, really, with some, like, minor control elements based around bravery, and really good like character suppression, mortal wound output. So you had like for anyone who doesn't know what Lumineth do, like most of your core units are wizards. So you are able to like have all these overlapping synergies. So units buffing themselves, buffing other units, which is good because it sort of leads you towards its castle build, but it also lets you like operate with those units independently if they need to.
Yeah. It very much felt like the raw outlet, especially Teclas and the Technado, obviously the spell portal seemed like such a no-brainer. But I think some of the things obviously keyed in whenever, because I've seen you play on TTS a few times, and I've seen other people play with their Lumineth as well. And one of the things that really stood out was, it was that protection of Heesh, like so that 5-up like war DPR like in the army but then also a spell ignore from Teclas. Like you just got so much from Teclas, why wouldn't you take him? And then it just kind of spiraled backwards, and you were like, right, well, then you're going to have Wardens, and then you're going to have Sentinels, and then it just seemed to almost write itself, especially because of the battalion, right?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. Those, especially because when Oral and Legion was a thing, I'm still bitter, but it's all right. Like, yeah, as you say, those lists wrote themselves because it was saying you have to take 2 of these, you have to take so many Sentinels, so many Wardens, and it was encouraging you to take the stuff you wanted to take anyway, the stuff that was good. Not all the lists, I think, competitively needed Teclas. There was that, that 70 Sentinel thing that was going on.
We're just losing you there a second, Matt. Sorry.
There are some... sorry.
Sorry, bud. We lost you.
Yeah, so what was I saying? So basically, like, there were most of the lists were like Teclas, Oral, and Legion. So you had Teclas, Wardens, Bows, maybe some Dawn Riders. And then you had the non-Teclas list, which were like just, I guess, generally like Vanari, Bow spam. And then you had some other lists which are generally like, weren't as successful, I don't think, which are your Metrica Cow stuff. But that's probably because it's quite low movement back then. I guess those were sort of what you saw in AOS 2, as opposed to now.
Yeah, no, I agreed. Thank you to Pragmatic for donating 5 gift subscriptions to the chat. That's fucking super nice of you. And for resubscribing himself. Most Empowered, thanks for resubscribing. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in live. Yeah, so one of the really interesting things about them, about the Lumineth in 2, and it's still going to be true in 3, we'll touch on it maybe before we talk about what we like about, what we like about Age of Sigmar 3 is it does seem, thanks to Matthew for donating 10 gift subscriptions, holy shit. Okay, thanks lads. Thanks lads. Really excited about the Lumineth and the kangaroos. Is it seems, Matthew, like, and I know you've played a lot of this army now, it seems like it's over the top. It's so many things. The hero phase feels like it's 1,000 hours. And it feels like there's all of the tool sets like going like. Would you say that felt fair? Like that's a fair description. And how, like, I'm not asking you to like defend the army, but like, how would you try? How have you tried to like speed up games or like minimize that impact on an opponent? Or you just think that's just how it works? Sadly,
it is a struggle because like obviously it's a core part of how the army works. It's literally like how they get their output, how they, get around the board, even stuff like that. It's the magic. It all revolves around the spell laws. So what I've tried to do is, and you obviously you get faster as you put the reps in, as you play more games. But I generally have a little at first I wrote it down, now I've got like a little mental playbook of like cast orders and things that I've grown used to. And you generally I found I work out this you have like 2 or 3 big plays in your head that generally you know what you're going to do, and it's like, right, what am I playing? I'm playing against this. I'm going to do X. So that means I'll cast this, and this in that order with these wizards. And that's how I've generally got around it, I think. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's fair. The other kind of point I wanted to make is in Age of Sigmar 2, looking at the stats, even though you had you had mortal wounds forever, the ability to cast spells, it felt with impunity, the Cathalar to ignore battle shock, and a bunch of positives, you didn't see them dominate the top tables. Like 4-1s were very common, were common, but it was rare. Like Big Sean over in New Zealand, one of the few 5-0s actually over the past year in the Age of Sigmar 2. So they weren't it wasn't super common, I don't think, for people to generally 5-0. Even though I think the experience for the other people, the non-Lumineth players, they felt like it was oh, you could do everything. It's actually, apart from maybe take out that final game in an event. Which I think is one of those interesting things when we go on to talk about it next, because it does feel like it has all of the toys, the Lumineth book.
It does have all the toys, but the damage is quite precision based. If you look at the Sentinel Lambert Light combo, probably the most widely known thing about the book. So anyone who doesn't know Lambert Light, it's a spell. You cast it on a 5, and you re-roll shooting to hit rolls against that target that you Lambert Light. Yeah. So it's like, okay, I'll everything's going to shoot that basically because that makes my output good. Or it's not like you don't have a lot of attacks. You don't have a lot. It's a lot of you're fishing for those 5s. So there was a general damage cap on the army. Mm-hmm. So some stuff, if you played a huge I don't know, big war or something with loads of wounds like Blight Kings or whatever, it struggled to get enough output out. So that was, I think, why you didn't see all those 5-0s. I think it needs a lot of luck in the matchups maybe to make a 5-0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that actually makes a lot of sense, and I think that's one of the things that you could see on the and especially the difference between taking any of your more classic spear elves and your archer elves versus taking any of the Cal Mountain men, because they generally did not perform well in tournaments at all. In AOS 2, which I thought was interesting, and I think they lacked the output even more than the other side of the book.
Yeah, which was interesting because you could get a decent output from them, but I think the problem with the Stone people was the ability to apply that, because they were just so slow. They're just so slow. Obviously that's slightly different now, and you're starting to see maybe them creep in. I know Eric, he did pretty well with the Geometrical list quite recently. Yeah. So that I saw that. I was quite interested by that. So
yeah, I think it's very interesting, especially moving into 3. Okay, so it's main strengths in 2. You've were magic, melee, shooting, movement, debuffs.
Well, I'm not so at debuffs, buffs definitely, but yeah.
Yeah, and then but the output. So you struggled against what we call DPS checks armies. So where someone was like, "Can you do all of this damage this quick?" and you were like, "Probably not." Was that would you say the issue?
Yeah, it's sort of that. Can you do all the damage before I do all the damage to you, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So like you had elements to mitigate that with like the Cathora and stuff, and those control spells that stop people doing things. But yeah, it is a DPS check, and also your movement options, your ways to improve movement, like speed of heat, and they were all like spells. So it's prone to not happening if you come up against those other big casters that can stop that, like Nagash. Suddenly your effectiveness was like, if I'm not getting power of heat off on my spears, if I'm not getting power of heat off on my bows, and it's like, against maybe Nagash or something, you're like, well, I guess I lose, So,
yeah. Thanks very much. It's been really fun. Let's not do any more. All right, that's fine. And just before we move on to 3, just to touch on, obviously, then we had the Wind Temple and the new wave, and obviously you dominantly played at the Super Series with not only Severith and the rest of the Wind side, but obviously those 15 Wind charges which we saw dominate emotionally, which is why we've got the onesie. Emotionally scar some people. Speckle's still emotionally recovering from that experience. James on Monday night described it as the worst game of Warhammer of his whole life, which is not you. Yeah. It's not you. It's the army, right?
No. I wrote the list to be the worst experience possible for anyone ever on the planet.
But it looked like you had the most fun running it.
Oh yeah, totally. It was amazing. No, still is amazing. The wind stuff was interesting because it suddenly brought out a load of fast stuff. So it's really like opened the book up. And now it's really removed like one of those major weaknesses from like the whole faction, which was the limited movement. Because now you have stuff that is still like decently fast, or in some cases just ridiculously fast all the time, like Severith and the Foxes, and so you've got stuff that can get over there and be cheeky in like the back line and whatever. So yeah, it's really like opened the book up, and also in terms of adding like damage output that isn't relied on mortals from the wind stuff, which is another like key thing, I think.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say actually, there's a lot of like output there, but like you say, more of a scalpel than necessarily a hammer, and I think I saw JP in the chat say something very similar. Thanks, Phil Doon, for resubscribing. Okay. Talk to me about Age of Sigmar. Before we talk about winners and losers for the Lumineth, talk to me about Age of Sigmar 3 and your feelings on it. You've obviously just off the back of an event with Lumineth Realm Lords, you just went to Mancunian Carnage, went 4-1 with that. You've played the TSN Arena at our events as well, and you've taken a first place trophy there. So talk to me about Age of Sigmar 3. How do you feel about it?
Big fan on the whole. I think the new command abilities, or in terms of Age of Sigmar 3, like for Lumineth, the new command abilities had a lot. In terms of Age of Sigmar by itself, I think it's a great game, and like those reactive moments now, it's way more fun, and I don't think it slows the game down as much as people think now. Like we're getting used to it. I think it's quite good. The monster stuff, I'm not sure. I don't know whether I like it or not yet. Like the whole like giving up victory points for monsters and like having to take monsters, because maybe it's just being a Lumineth player because we don't have like outside of Teclas, I don't know, maybe cows are all right. I'll talk about them later. But you're not like sport for choice on monsters, if that makes sense.
The violin I have for you is far too small to play.
Thank you. Yeah, okay. But it's really good. It's really good, and I've been finding a lot of the games I've been playing have been like way closer than you always expect. You're always like still in it till like turn 3-4. You're going like, oh my god, like you're still having to hustle. It's like you're getting way more like way less games that are just like, oh, I've just deleted you. There's nothing you can do about it. I'm way ahead on score. So I think it's really good.
Yeah, no, I think, big thumbs from it, basically. Hey to Randy in the chat. Also, thank you to Pedro Fantastico for resubscribing. And who smashed a Zinch Archeon list with his ogres on Sunday. That's an achievement. Oh, yeah. Ooh.
Get that in the sea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But-
Get out of here.
Yeah, I'd take a picture and frame that is what I'd do. Not many people will know what that means, but like whenever I come around your house, you can be like, "This is the day I did that." I'm like, "Wow!" I mean, like excellent. Thanks, Galaneth, for resubscribing. Yeah, so like I know you touched on the monsters a little bit and the scoring system generally. How do you find list writing? Because the Lumineth book is also a tad complex, I think, necessarily to put together. Like, and then do you find the battalions help, not help, like enhancements? Are you finding, like, if you got your head around it yet? Like, are you even sure whether or not you can take an extra enhancement on Teclas yet? Like, what's the situation?
I mean, Teclas, I don't think he
No, he
would
can't.
benefit from enhancement anyway because he's like a unique character. But if I feel like there's a few things that like in the core battalions that they definitely benefit from. Like obviously, spell enchantment is huge because, and I've been using it in a lot of my lists because if you can get that spell enchantment, suddenly all your units know 2 spells, and it gives you more redundancy and stuff like that. And also access to being a 1-drop is nice because it was something that like those Teclas lists relied on before, so it's good that you can still do it. If you want to go first, get those key spells off. Yeah, and also I like some of the cheeky GHB ones for it. I've got a list later that I'll talk about.
All right. Well, let's jump into it then. Let's talk about winners and losers then. So the winners and losers, like, and obviously, I mean, we'll touch on the stuff that's also good. But yeah, talk to me like about winners and losers because I'm not like, yeah, let's go. Let's tell me how you feel.
Well, the first big winners that I think there are, and this I'm going to talk about the sub factions.
Okay.
Because we gained with the Teclas book, we gained 2 new sub factions, which really changed the games. Which is obviously Alumnia, which gives you a pre-game move on your Cenari and Venari, and access to run and charge, which is pretty big.
That's good.
Like army wide. Well, not army wide. You have to spend a CP. You pick a unit, but it's anyone can run and charge potentially.
Yeah.
And then you got Helon, which gives you like more shots if you're in combat with someone, and the ability to move at the end of the combat phase. And those are big winners purely because they give you more movement options straight off the bat, which is one of the army's like key weaknesses. So that was immediately a big win. You suddenly got like ways of getting your stuff around the board a lot quicker, a lot easier. And moving things out of sequence, which is always amazing. As we know, movement is king. So yeah, that's my first big winner out of those. Other big winners, I'd say, obviously, Teclas is a big winner. He's a hero monster. You know, and most people were taking him anyway. He's going to get access to more healing. He's gained access to the new Wind Law, so that's even more healing. I mean, he knows like 22 spells now.
Wow.
So yeah, you've got something for any occasion. Like you're never like out the game with Teclas. I don't think you've got play into everything. If that makes sense. And obviously he's got monstrous reactions, so he can do all that jazz, all those new tricks. So I think he's a big winner there. And also all-out defense. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Have you heard of all-out defense?
That works quite nicely on Teclas, I guess.
Yeah. It makes him way more survivable, and it means you don't have to run him in Sayar now. Because previously, like, Sayar was your big defensive sub-faction. You got access to more Aether Quartz, so you could stack +1 save. But now you don't have to do that. So you can put Teclas and you can play those Wardens in the other sub-factions, and they're just as good, if not better now, because they get access to new things.
It felt like actually weirdly, you ended up with more kind like your buffs kind of evened out. Like you've got Shining Company, so like -1 to hit, like being capped basically. You're like, cool. Well, like I don't need to like move into like Geminids or anything to make more minuses to hit to kind of like double down on it. I've just got that like +1 save. Oh, cool. I've got Aether Quartz. That's the max I can do. But actually, I've also got access now to a Mystic Shield. All-out defense, so I'm super cheeky, which is good. And I know that with the new spell law, you got a heal as well. Like a D6 heal, but then there's also heroic recovery, and that also feels like that works super well on Teclas as well, just to kind of bring him up a little bit in case he happens to take any damage. So like it feels like, yeah. Anyway, you're the one who knows. I'll let you talk.
No. You're completely right, and stuff like obviously like, and you can further stack that healing with things like Life Swarm. Wardens love Life Swarm because they're obviously their one wound, and you're going to get loads back. Stuff like it's really improved like the staying power of the army, which was key because I think another one of the weaknesses of the army before that we didn't maybe touch on was you're always quite low model count. It's a very elite army. Like you're not. There's not a lot of bodies on the board, and you've got to make them count. So any like stuff like rally and like new Life Swarm, it's great to be able to like put more bodies back onto the board. So maybe Life Swarm's a winner for Lumineth. Who knows?
Yeah.
Big winners. Another big winner is obviously all your core stuff. So your Wardens, your Sentinels. Now they did go up in points. There were points increases, obviously.
Yeah.
But luckily, I think losing the battalions that paid for a lot of your points increases. So it's not too much of a negative there. But all your core stuff, the core rules now give you access to Mystic Shield and Arcane Bolt, which you didn't previously have on the War Scrolls before. They only knew Power of Heesh. And a spell that you could get. So you can now have like, it's only a little thing, but like Wardens casting Mystic Shield and stuff like that. It's good to like, not rely on your heroes to get access to Mystic Shield now, which is, as we know, pretty key in this edition, I think, for like staying around. Other big winners. The normal cow.
Okay, well, can we go back? Can we just cycle back a little bit, just because I want to talk about the Sentinels and the Wardens, because I think a lot of people would have got that. Do you think that? Thank you, by the way, to Andy O'Reilly for resubscribing, and Nurgle Matthew for donating a gift subscription. Would you say that the points increases were fair? Do you, no, what I mean by that is because I know Wardens went up quite a bit, right, compared to Sentinels, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
And I always felt that you were limited on bodies anyway in Lumineth, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so I was like, wow, it doesn't feel like you can get a lot, is what I'm trying to get at.
I think Sentinels might be fair, 150. I think it's probably fair. Dawn Riders 140. Yeah, whatever. I only was ever taking like a unit of them anyway. Maybe. Wardens, I have an issue with them being 145, mainly because Halfguard Berserkers are 125 points, and I think that's just ridiculous. But there you go. I don't know why they'd be.
It's more of a Hearthguard issue than it is anything else.
It's my eternal war on Halfguard Berserkers.
That's fair. That's very narrative. That works out.
145 points. I think the problem I have with them being 145 points, I'd maybe put them at 135. Is just because they are. And unless you take some other different sub-factions that give you access to other battle line options, they are your only battle line option outside of like Blade Lords, which you're not necessarily taking anyway.
Yeah.
So they're like your core battle line option. They're the one that they're like the poster boys of the book in a weird way. And I think being 145, I don't know, it's quite a lot for like your always take core battle line. I think maybe just a little shave too much. And I bet there's loads of people in the chat going like, "Oh my god, busted as hell. What's he talking about?"
It's just Charlie saying that best to goes are 135, but that's fine.
That's a different thing, isn't it? That's
Well, I think it's an interesting take actually, because I think probably Sentinels are maybe the perfect battle line unit, and therefore, like, if you were gonna judge what all other battle line, like your 10-man battle line units should be, I think Sentinels should probably be your baseline. Maybe because they're the best of the best. They're a wizard. They can do mortals on 5s. They've got 3-inch reach, which is huge. They've got a good armor save with an inbuilt ability to add +1, regardless of anything else. They're fairly brave. They're not the quickest. That's fair. But other than that, like that 3-inch range is obviously pretty fantastic. So it feels like if we're cool with them being 145 or 135, I think just for all of the faction reactions, it's kind of like my kind of statement would be, if you think that they're better or worse than that, this is your like benchmark for like what those units are lower. Because I think that they're not loads of frills, right? Like apart from, I mean, they are loads of frills. So if your stuff isn't loads of frills,
what they are.
Yeah, but if you got less frills, then probably your battleline unit should be a little bit cheaper, I reckon. But that's on it. But anyway, you were saying on winners, sorry.
No. I'm also saying other winners. The generic cow. So this is the non-Avalenors. Big hammer guy, hammer cow, big thumbs. Why? He's a monster. and monsters are great now.
Yep.
So he gets access to all that stuff. And also the new sub-factions significantly improve how they perform. Now, there's always this problem when you look at the stone units in the Lumineth book and you go, well, obviously, they'd be a lot tankier in your Metrica.
Yep.
So I should play them in your Metrica, right?
Yep.
But with the new edition, getting access to all-out defense and obviously Mystic Shield being +1 save again, it means that actually you don't necessarily need to put them in your Metrica to ignore the rend because you've got other ways to do it.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So again, it opens them up to stuff like, and also, so putting them in like Alumnia, suddenly you've got a cowl that can run and charge.
Yeah, with a CP, yeah.
And also, Rend -2, the Cowl King guy, I can't remember his name, Avaleno, I can never Avaleno.
Yeah.
He's only Rend -1, and the big Cowl's Rend -2, it wounds on 2s as well. So it loves all-out attack, so it can be 2s and 2s.
Yeah.
I think it's -1 pick a unit and -1 to hit ability is better because it's a whole unit, whereas Avalenor's is only models in range. So it's just he's cheaper. It's a big winner. You can put them in the pre-game move battalion for monsters, so you can get them up a board a bit quicker. And then, you can so pre-game move, run and charge, speed of heash. You can put a cow 3 inches away from someone, like turn 1 if needs be now. And stuff like that. Stuff like redeploy. Redeploy is really interesting because, a lot of people, I think, use redeploy to, make that charge harder, don't they? But redeploy also gives you the license to get your units up the board quicker. So a lot of the slow stone units, like the cows, the stone guard, if someone moves within 9 inches of you, redeploy, get a few more inches on them. Get closer. You're tanky anyway. You want to be up there. You want to be in the center with those stone units fighting. So redeploy is a really nice new way of getting them up there for a cheeky CP. And you're not short on CP with the Shrine, obviously. That was another big winner. Coming into iOS 3, we got our terrain piece, which is essentially, for those of you that don't know quite what it does, it's just 10 free CP. You've got to look at it like that. It's just 10 free CP.
It's just 10 free CP. It's the most casual way to describe a piece of terrain.
Yeah. You get 1 CP in each player's turn, every turn. Only usable by the person in the shrine, but right now you can put your general in there. That's still hollower than 18 inches, able to use CP, so it's great. And also gives you reroll to cast and unbind, which was great because if you weren't taking Teclas, then you previously only had you had to do other things to buff your casting, whereas now you have more reliable casting just straight off the bat without necessarily needing Teclas.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and unbinding as well. So it bumped up the whole general reliability of the army, the shrine. What else? Other big winners. There's some.
So can I ask a question about the shrine? Where do you typically So where does it have to be deployed, and where do you typically deploy it?
Well, it's got to be in your territory.
Yeah.
The usual jazz, 3 inches from objectives and all that sort of stuff. Typically, it depends on the list, I guess, because if you're playing something which pushes up the board, maybe a lot more, so loads of wardens and cow stuff, maybe you put it slightly. I'd probably play it quite aggressively, but with my kangaroos, I've generally been backboarding it because they want to stay away from enemy shooting. You want to keep your heroes safe and out of unbind range. So generally, I've actually been keeping it quite far back, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I was gonna talk about that. Thanks to IMT Jones for subscribing, by the way, on Twitch. Big love to you. Because when I play Tzeentch, for instance, I generally try and be how aggressively can I deploy my casters forward? Because most of what I'm doing is casting against you. Whereas I feel with Lumineth, what you're mainly doing is casting on yourself generally.
Oh yeah.
When you're not playing Teclas. So the idea that you actually want to play further away, because kind of in my head I'm well, you want the Loon Shrine forward, so you got that 18-inch range for command abilities, but you're saying actually I want it further away so I can cast the spells and not be unbound. Is roughly what.
Yeah, and also if you have someone in the shrine, that reroll range on the shrine is 24 inches anyway, so it's pretty far-reaching. So you can have it at the back and still be big thumbs, rerolls for days, let's go. Yeah. So
And how have you found? How have you found? So obviously, like with your general on the board in Age of Sigmar 3, you get a CP every turn.
yeah.
And then it's generally. I mean, obviously, you can try and generate a CP as well. So you get CP every turn, and now you're getting a CP. Well, Lumineth players are getting a CP. Like, do you just feel like you're swamped in CP? Like,
this is interesting. Actually, no. I always like end up using all my CP in a battle round.
right? Okay.
And like, there's sometimes I usually find like, so most of the time with the lists I've been running, I've just been rolling for CP anyway, because unless you're like trying to heal Severith or something, it's always like, I don't know, all your heroes are like, they're not fighters, so you don't generally go for like finest, best day, whatever.
Yeah. Super Tuesday.
Generally the unbinds, because you've got buckets of loads of unbinds anyway. So CP is generally what I go for. But yeah, I find that I'm normally like on the money with CP, or maybe like I have one left, or maybe I'm maybe one more than I'd like one more, to be honest. Yeah, I think the army like in 3 plays and needs some of those like all out defense. You're quite hungry for all out defense, I find.
Okay.
So I think that's where a lot of your CP goes. Yeah. So I'm fine. Like CP, it's good that we've got the shrine. I think. Otherwise, I think we would struggle maybe a little for CP.
Okay. All right. Sweet. I just wanted to know, because I think a lot of people would be like, "Wow, that's a lot of CP you've got." But then some armies, like same Git, Seraphon, they generally generate a lot of CP in addition per turn as well. So I think that's one of the that's one of the conversations. And some other armies just don't generally tend to like my Tzeentch list doesn't generally tend to use CP for like other than like the core stuff. Yeah, like and I will be using it for all out defense and other stuff. So it's got to be more specific about where I'm applying it. So yeah, I can completely see that. Cool. What's next? Big. So the shrine's a big win.
Chronomatic cogs.
Oh. Okay. That's not technically in the book, but big win for everyone, I think.
Big win for everyone in the book. And to be honest, it just makes the army go crazy mode, because then you don't have to choose between Parafiche or your spell.
Yeah.
And suddenly, like, you can cast you can have a go at everything, which for, your opponent, they're like, well, I can't stop it all.
Yeah.
So
just for everyone at home to be aware, every wizard within 6 inches gets to cast an additional spell once Chronomantic Cogs has gone off, which means all of your units, well, not all of your units, but like your Sentinels and your Wardens, they obviously are wizards, so you would do their War Scroll spell. So unlike Pink Horrors, where you can only do their War Scroll spell, you can do their War Scroll spell and then you can do an additional spell now.
Yeah. It's crazy good.
You seem so impressed. Because you said what? There are 24 spells available?
Oh, well, Teclas knows like 22 or something like that. But I mean, most of your core ones can only know Law of Heath spells. But like, if you've got a Wind Mage in there, suddenly they can cast 2 spells from the Law of Wind, or Stone Mage or whatever. So you're basically guaranteed to get off like most of your Parafiches, and then you can just have it's just about like. They're all good. It's all good stuff. It's all stuff you want. Like, you're always like, you always have to make decisions as a Lumineth player, being like, it would be great if I could get Total Eclipse off this turn, but I need to Parafiche, stuff like that. And now you can be like, well, I can just try doing both. So see where that gets me.
So but just for everyone at home, just in case you weren't aware, Parahish is you instead of doing 6 mortals to wound on 6s to hit, you do them on 5s to hit. What's it cast on? A 5?
Yeah, something like that.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I think it's like so it's quite like reliable, and obviously you've got Aether Quartz to buff that anyway if you in a pinch if you need to. So again, because it just makes it more reliable. Aether Quartz, very good. Very good.
Okay,
very
sweet.
Good.
Sweet. Chronomantic Cogs, very scary. I mean, as a Tzeentch player, like, you can cast all the spells all day if you want, although you're also going to shoot all my characters to death, so, like little column A, little column B.
Lumineth versus Tzeentch is horrific if you've both got Cogs, because it's like, have all the fate points, have all the fate points you ever wanted. 20 pinks a turn, I don't get whatever it is, Ridiculous.
Problem is like unless you're running Archeon, I think you lose a lot of the other stuff to shooting, like as the Tzeentch player. I don't think it works that way. But no, I get it. This army, okay. Sorry. So what else are the big winners? Do you think?
Some other small winners. There's a lot of like general. small winners would be Severith, because again, he's a hero, gets access to that healing now, gets access to Finest Hour on Severith is good, because Finest Hour, for those of you that don't know, also affects your shooting profile. It's just attacks. So
Okay,
boost his shooting to wounding on 2s. So for that like turn where you need him to really actually like not whiff, it's good. Or maybe like he's up the board and you need him to like get that extra +1 save.
And what's his shooting profile again?
So he's 4 shots, 2s to hit, 3s to wound, -3 Ren, D3 damage.
-3.
Yeah.
Holy hell!
Makes him really good in the new edition, because as we all know, -3 is the new -2, and -2 is the new -1. So being -3 is like it's great.
Yeah, really good. Yeah, that's amazing.
Like the extra wounds through on things, like that you couldn't quite with like maybe the root.
Yeah, and I mean D3 damage, right? Like basically 4d3 damage is not insignificant. Effectively,
No.
like you'll kill a character, or you'll definitely chip a monster down pretty aggressively. And it's 24-inch range.
No, it's 18, but you never. His movement's 24, so you're never going to struggle to get it into range, if that makes sense.
Yeah, true.
You can't really screen 18 inches on the new boards, so like he's going to be shooting what he wants.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But Severith's generally a winner because obviously Finest Hour as well. That's really interesting because already very, very good. Did he go up many points in this?
He did go up I don't know. I know significantly. It was at least 40 points. I think he went up, or something like that. He went up to. I think he's 3, 4, 5 right now, which was definitely more than he was. Don't quote me on the 40 points thing. He's more points, but I think he's definitely worth it. Mainly because of the healing. He sticks around a lot longer. Because that heroic recovery, he's a spirit, so he's bravery 10, which is quite unusual for the army. So he's got really easy access to heroic recovery. And also, wind spirits heal D3 if they're near wind mages. So you can get like a 2d3 heal, maybe a 3d3 heal on him if you've got the wind spell. It means that he's less prone to being shot off the board.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because he's just crazy good. Like you said, healing 3d3 is pretty significant. Because what's his base armor save? 3, and then he's got a 4 up.
No. He's 10 wounds. He's a 5 up with the 5 up DPR inbuilt. So
right,
5 up. So you can have him like 4 up, 5 up. He's not the most survivable thing in the world. So if you do catch him with something good, then he's in a bit of a tricky spot, but obviously you're never going to catch him because he's a bit chat.
Okay, I mean we got to talk about that a little bit just for a moment. Like any of the wind spirits, because I see Joe Cryer in the chat, and I think a lot of people, JP in the chat as well, obviously plays Lumineth. A lot of people obviously are either playing with or playing against the wind spirits. They effectively can't be charged. Like, explain to me how it works, and explain to me what your experience is having played it like dozens of games now. What are your thoughts?
So basically, like they're super fast, and they can't be charged because they have an ability which lets them, at the end of the shooting phase, move 12 inches, and that includes your opponent's shooting phase, which means that because it's at the end of the shooting phase, so you've already had your movement phase.
Which wasn't clear when the book came out, but then got FAQ'd to specifically do that.
Yeah. They blessed them. They were like, yes, this is intentional. So maybe not, but they blessed it anyway. So because you've already made your movement in your movement phase, you can't then. Usually, you can't move anymore after that, especially in the shooting phase. So being able to move back 12 inches means that you're always going to be out of that golden 12-inch range to declare a charge. So the only real way for them to catch you as a wind spirit is they have to either like spend a turn like ring fencing this fox with their entire army, so it can only has to move towards something, which is a big win for the Lumineth player anyway, because you've spent your whole turn ring fencing one model, whatever. Or they have to have a 3d6 charge to be able to get stuff. So there's a few things out there with a 3d6 charge, but as long as you play carefully, and especially with access to redeploy now, you're not that worried about a 3d6 charge. So essentially he's only getting in combat when you really want him to. And you do want him to get in combat because he's a great control piece. And this is what I think Severith's best at. Because his damage can sometimes be swingy with that 3-up to wound. But what he's great at is tagging things. And he's got this ability where he reduces the pile-in of models within 3 inches by inches. So essentially, any model in 3 inches of Severith has a 1-inch pile-in. So if you've got a 1-inch melee weapon, you can charge him with Severith, and then you can pile back 3 inches to 2.9 away, because he's a wind model, and wind models can pile in any direction they want, regardless. And then he can obviously tag those units and maybe take minimal attacks back, or even sometimes no attacks back. And essentially, they're then stuck in combat with this fox, and they're not able to charge. Then they're not able to run out of a retreat, so they could maybe only have to shoot him. His strength relies on being that control piece that stops your opponent from doing things. So he is literally playing with him is amazing, but I can fully see playing against him is probably the worst negative play experience ever, because not only is he killing your doing decent reliable output and mortal wounds, and potentially blowing up your terrain. He's stopping you from doing things with your toys, and that's his real strength.
Yeah, it's a control piece. I think that's one of the really interesting things. You think, when I've seen you play with him, I've seen him played on the tabletops at the Super Series and other stuff. I think one of the things that really struck me was how you're able to, and Joe in the chat talking about running them in a line, so effectively you can kind of slowly move block your opponent's army. We've seen this in Age of Sigmar time again, right? We've seen it with Endless Spells, we've seen it with Swamp lists, we've seen it with Sylvaneth 1-drop lists, iterations of making your opponent be unable to do stuff. Even Kairos Spell Portal, Gift of Change, doing the same thing, right? He's cool, I've popped out 6 of your models or 1 of your model or whatever, and I put a spawn there, so I've move blocked you for the next turn. It's just a very consistent tactic in Age of Sigmar that's worked very, very, very well, right? Because like you said earlier on, movement is king, so not only yours being good, but theirs being worse because you've made it worse seems like a no-brainer. And I think it's one of those experiences people have to kind of unpack and play against and learn, because it must be are you still learning tricks? Because it feels like such a utility piece that there must be so much to do with it.
Yeah, definitely. There's, every game there's something I go there's a moment where I go, oh yeah, I could have done that, and you don't even sometimes you don't even register it, but you're always learning, definitely.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, always.
What about the other foxes? As good, or what's going on there?
I see the merits of a 4-fox list. I don't think it's something I would play, purely because if you do catch them, or if you do have access to some decent shooting, then they're less tanky. They're only 8 wounds.
Yeah.
And they don't get heroic recovery, so your healing on them is more limited. They can't all-out defense themselves because they're not heroes, so they're less survivable. And I think they're just a little too... and also, they don't do the mortal wounds. Which I think is very key to Severith's output. He's a lot of chip mortal wounds. Those mortal wounds are moving over things, and because you do the mortal wounds even when you move over in their shooting phase. So it adds up. It's at the tournament the weekend I played Alex with his dock, and I wasn't even a lot of the time wasn't I put maybe a few shots into Marathi, but it was Severith that just did this little chip damage to Marathi just by moving over her, it's stuff like that. It adds up, that damage. So I think that's what makes him good. I think you have to have the complete package for me. I wouldn't necessarily look at the other foxes.
Yeah, no, fair enough. What's next? What else? Big wins.
Ruse. So they're a bit of a winner and a loser.
Okay.
And this will take us into our losers, I think. So Ruse, obviously, they gain access to easy +1 to hit. So you don't have to burn your Aether Quartz now to get hitting on 2s. It means you're less reliant on Lambent Light, and obviously +1 save improves output. Not output, survivability.
Yep.
And also the ability to unleash hell. I don't think we've talked about unleash hell now.
No.
But it makes some things like Sentinels, Ruse really good. Because obviously shooting before they're high quality shooting, you're hitting really good. You can also burn Aether Quartz in the charge phase. You can burn it in any phase. So you can Unleash Hell, burn Aether Quartz, and ignore the -1 to hit if you want as well.
Wow.
That's another little cheat tactic.
Nice.
So it's stuff like that. Suddenly charging 15 roos becomes a bit like, oh,
how many shots? How many? If I charge 15 roos, what am I facing in an Unleash Hell?
31 shots. And also, if they're in Helon, this is another reason why Helon's really good in the new edition, because you do Unleash Hell after the charge is finished. So if they move within 3 inches of your Helon models, any Helon model in 3 inches of an enemy gets another shot. So if you like charge 15 roos and then you wrap them, then suddenly you get even more shots with your roos, maybe like 45. Who knows if you wrap them completely?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why roos are a winner. They, however, are losers because they lost the Wind Battalion, which means that they have to charge you now. They don't get that free 6-inch pile in. So you've got to play with them a lot tighter now. They're still good, but you can't just be like, lol, I pile in, I pile out, whatever.
Yeah.
I run away. And obviously -1 rend, not as good as it was. You can get around it a little bit. Total Eclipse, and there's a spell in the Law of Winds, which means you can totally shut off command abilities. You can't receive them, you can't issue them. So there's a way of like getting around all that defense with ruse. But it does like -1 rend is obviously a bit sad now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we haven't really we haven't touched it. We've said it a couple of times, but in the meta where everyone wants to do an Unleash Hell, or maybe even builded lists like the double 60 Sentinels or like double 30 Sentinels, sorry, for 60, or the Storm Fiends or anything. Any of these things that definitely want to be using CP because they're building it into their lists, all out defense and other stuff. Total Eclipse has to be maybe the standout spell, maybe in Age of Sigmar, probably an argument, maybe the best spell in Age of Sigmar. Like it's
up there. It's definitely, I'd say it's in the top 5, defo.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so anyone who doesn't know what Total Eclipse does, it essentially forces your opponent to use 2 CP for every command ability instead of 1, and that's board wide. There's no range in it. You just cast it. It happens. It's really, really, really strong. And especially, if you're only going if you're going first in a turn or even second, you're only getting 2, 3 CP. So that's suddenly that's 1 command ability, not 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
It's massive.
Which is
it's
huge.
Yeah, you're probably getting, if going first, you're probably getting 3. No, you're probably getting 1 and then 1 for your general, and then if you go in, you're probably getting 3. So, like you say, it just means that you go from being able to go in second to maybe doing 3 command abilities to dropping down to 1. And that's obnoxious, right? It's so good. I think that's one of the.
Great. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
You've
you've really reduced it down. Right? Huh?
Yeah. It's good because it means suddenly it takes options away from your opponent. More negative play, I know, but
it's just we're not here there's not this is a show about Lumineth. You want to play with Lumineth, or even you want to play against Lumineth, warts and all. Whether or not there's no judgment on its power level. When I say it's one of the best spells in the game, I mean it. It is one of the best spells in the game, and if you want to do it, whenever I see those wind chargers running around, the kangaroos, it's the funniest thing because you see the other guy and he's like, what the fuck is this? They got the funniest look on their face, all right?
It's great when you do it to someone who's never played it before, and then they're like, what? They move how up? You're like, oh, I don't know. I didn't write it.
Again, it's, I don't know. I think it's fairly fragile, and there's some other stuff you could talk about. Thanks, Stabgrot, for resubscribing. Big love to you, Stabgrot. But yeah, there's no judgment at the moment. It's just 100% interesting, and the play. So you think those are all the big winners? Can I ask, before we move on to losers, can I ask about stuff that's maintained its level of good? How's the Calathar? Still good? Stuff like that. What's good out the book if you were doing these are great, pick these up sort of thing?
To be honest, there's a long list of stuff that's good.
Okay.
There's a long list of stuff that you're like, yeah. There's a use for everything, I think. The Calathar, as you say, is just still bonkers good because it gives you access to another way of ignoring Battle Shock. And also, uniquely in the game, weaponizing your Battle Shock. I don't think any other faction has access to anything else like that. for those of you that don't know, so the Cathol has this ability that means so say I've got a unit and they lose 5 models. You've hit them in combat, they lose 5 models. On a 2-up, I ignore that Battle Shock modifier and I put it on you. So now you have to take a Battle Shock test. Assuming you have to take a Battle Shock test already, it puts the modifier onto someone else. So like suddenly they've got to take a Battle Shock test at like -5, -10, whatever. So it's a unique way of like your opponent not accounting for damage. Like it's a sneaky way of like getting pseudo damage through, and it forces them to use CP on stuff like Inspiring Presence or whatever that they necessarily might want to use on something else. Also, Cathol are really good for that spell. It's Darkness of the Soul, in my opinion, the best spell in the game.
Oh, okay, fascinating. As someone who's got access to already the best spell, I think. Well, talk to me about what it does. That's a War Scroll spell for the Cathol, right?
Yeah. So it's essentially what it is you cast it. It's cast on like 7, I think, 18-inch range, and you go. So whenever you put it on a unit, and you go, whenever that unit wants to move, shoot, charge, or fight, you've got to roll 2d6, and if it's above your bravery, you can't do it. And obviously, the army has ways to manipulate opponents' bravery. You can reduce bravery with the Cathol by taking the negative bravery you use from Eighth Corps, putting it on other people. There's spells in the spell laws to reduce bravery. So it's essentially like Be'lakor, but every turn, and you can modify it.
Wow. Okay.
It's how I pitch it.
Yeah, because that's pretty impressive. Because you pay for Be'lakor, really, you're always paying for the ability, and the monster and the damage and the spellcaster and everything else is like the thing extra. But what you're saying is this is a cheaper access to Be'lakor that instead of Be'lakor being once per game, it's potentially over 5 turns.
Maybe not as reliable as Be'lakor because it, obviously it's a spell and it relies on people's bravery, but with ways to reduce it, if you've even got like average bravery, it's extremely effective.
Yeah.
Against lots of stuff. And stuff like bravery, maybe bravery 10 stuff, you're not so worried. But even bravery 9 stuff, you're like, yeah, I can get that down to like maybe, 6, 7. So that's, suddenly you're failing like you're not doing half the things you want to do. And that's really amazing. Other stuff that is still good. Again, all the core troops, Scenari units in general, because they gained an ability called Contemplate, which means that instead of casting spell this turn, you can wait a turn and then auto cast a spell on a 9. I don't really use it that much, but it's nice to have, I guess. It's like more rules, give me more rules. Other stuff that has stayed good. Stone units. I think Stone Guard, they're still decent. They're probably more decent now because you've got access to a teleport spell. You've got access to more movement options. So I think they've probably bumped up into the decent category now. That's probably everything else is like just there's no losers like real like. Well, okay.
Nothing you think lost. Okay, what lost? What lost? What were the losers?
So losers. Hishian Binstones, twins. Sorry. So twin stones. They used to be. You cast it, and it gave you casting bonuses, and you can like power it up to like get those key spells off. So it was. I won't go into it because it's quite complicated to explain, but it was basically an effective like army-wide +2 to cast as long as you kept successfully casting spells. Mm-hmm. Now it's just you cast it and you cast spells near it and that powers it up. And then when you decide to actually use the Twin Stones, it dispels itself. And I think there are some people that like argue it's still worth it and that it was obviously horrifically undercosted before. But now it's gone up in points and now you're sacrificing multiple casts just to try and power up one cast. And I think I would rather have more casts than one super cast because I've already got rerolls. I've got Eighth of Quartz. If you take stuff in Zytrek, which is a sub-faction that gives everyone +1 to cast, you've got that as well. If you take Teclas, you're getting +6 to cast. So it's like necessary now, I think. What else have I got?
Well, I was going to say, like, it feels like the Twin Stones kind of conversation has just moved from, like, like, can I get more reliable casting to kind of have more casting, like you
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
with Chronomantic Cogs, and it feels like it's a different swap, but it's like a side grade. So, like, you didn't necessarily go down, you just
Yeah, you
changed.
sidestepped into cogs basically. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which
It's
yeah, that's the. But yeah, I mean, it got worse. What about the other endless spells? Like, because I know, over in, I know what's it called? The Rune of Petrification. Is that the one? The one that did all the damage. Did that change? Because like,
No,
obviously,
I think that stayed unchanged. I think the only change was, I think they made the Sanctum one slightly like more. I think they just cleaned it up a little bit. Um, I don't find I wasn't taking those two ones anyway. Um, Mainly because the stone one's good, but it's 70 points, so it's quite I think like, and it doesn't move, and it's on a 4-up to do the mortal wounds, so it's not necessarily reliable. It's quite high cast. I was never looking at those two from a competitive standpoint anyway. Um, so I don't think you'll see a lot of them in lists, certainly in competitive Lumineth lists anyway. So I don't think they're a huge loss in terms of that, because you weren't really seeing them anywhere. You're not like, you haven't lost anything, I don't think. Yeah. Other losers, the Venari Bannerblade, just because he's so shit.
that's fair. You're allowed one
He's
shit
just,
unit, like one. One's fine.
he's just so bad. Great model. Painting meta stonks through the roof, but
What about
through the roof. But
what about like just a couple of follow up questions because we've had them from the chat. What are your thoughts and feelings on the twins? So not the Twin Stones, the twins.
Oh yeah. The twins, they're so interesting. They are interesting, and I keep thinking about them in lists. They're obviously a very unique piece. They give you access to more CP. They're reasonably hitty. They get way hittier as the battle goes on. They're also your only access to like a decent caster that isn't Teclas, because they get an innate +1/+1/+1, and they're a 2 caster. So that's pretty good. They're reasonably good. They've got access to a 5-up TPR on their War Scroll. They can do a Mortal Wound Laser. They get great healing, and because they've got this thing where like you roll for the number of wounds they've taken, or like the battle round, and if it's under, they teleport away and heal D6 mortal wounds. So I think they're good because they become a lot more survivable. But the thing for me that they struggle with is, and the reason I don't get them into lists necessarily, is two things. Is I think they're 280 points, or maybe 285, and for me that's just a little bit too much for something that. Well, I guess the problem is like, so they're really hitty, so you want them to be in combat, but they're also not necessarily that tanky. So if they're prone to being one shot by something, and then on their abilities encourage you to keep them near your general, so you get more CP. So this is weird, like I don't know, sort of like tension in the War Scroll that it's trying to get you to. It's like you have to choose between doing things rather than getting all the stuff that you want out of the War Scroll that you're paying for.
Yeah, it isn't specified, which is like almost a counterpoint to Severith, where Severith does 8 things that you want it to do, like at once. Whereas
and it's all of them exactly where you want them.
Yeah.
And just being too many points. It's this weird point number, and just like how the list building works out, that you have to make sacrifices in other places that you don't want to make to fit them in. That's my view on the twins. They are good. I do think there is a place for them, definitely outside of Lumineth, because they're unique and they can be allied into any order army, so they give you more CP and stuff like that. So I think there's the place for them there, to be honest. And the second thing that stops them is they are faction locked to Ilithia, which is, in my opinion, and I know JP probably disagrees with me, the worst sub-faction in the book. It has got better. It has got better because they get access to reroll ones to hit, and it improves the bravery. And you're not locked into any like, there's no like tax artifact and stuff like that. But they're locked into that faction, so they can't get like any mileage out of like Alumnia. So they can't get like run and charge. They can't get like a move out of combat thing. And I think that limits them a little bit.
Okay, yeah, fair. And not to keep quizzing you on every single unit of the book, but this is one for me. Mr. Lawseeker. Talk to me about Mr. Lawseeker.
Oh!
Yeah or no?
Special place in my heart.
Mr. Lawseeker.
Mr. Lawseeker and his buddy, the Blade Lords, chef's kiss.
Oh, really? So talk to me about how, like, the combo, why it's good and what it does.
So the Lawseeker, he doesn't make it into every list because you have to. There's a bit of a Blade Lord tax, I think, to make him work. And also the new missions. He's reliant on your enemy territory essentially. So basically, he's got a mechanic where you can choose to before the game, deploy him off the board, and then set him up anywhere in your in enemy territory. It has to be in enemy territory, more than 3 inches away from enemy models. And that's good because you can be a little assassin thing. If it forces your opponent to screen off like 3 inches, which is like ridiculous, obviously. But there's another part to this ability, and that is if you set him up on an objective, which there are no enemy models on, then as long as he's within 6 inches of that objective is yours as long as he's alive.
Yeah.
And so in some missions where you your opponent can't get on the objectives or there's like the territories extend quite far out or the opponent can't get onto all their objectives immediately, what it lets you do is take lead in the primary game, on those objective scoring things. And Blade Lords are key to this because Blade Lords have a rule that they let you pass off wounds on a 2+, so they're like a bodyguard unit. They're 2 wound models, they've got 4 up save, they benefit from Shining Company, so they're -1 to hit. And they have a spell ignore, so they're like the ultimate bodyguard. And if you get a couple of, say, maybe 10, sometimes I've even written silly lists with like 15 Blade Lords in. You can sort of play like pseudo-like Gargants in a way and go like, this is mine, this objective is mine, until you kill this Lawseeker, come get me. And your opponent doesn't necessarily expect you to play in that way, in that sort of like, I stand there and I survive sort of thing.
Yeah.
And
it's also fairly unique because while Gargants do it in one particular way, their melee output or like their what else they can, all that they can really bring to the table is they're going to be there. Whereas you could hold with the Blade Lords and the Lawseeker while Sentinels are shooting into that kind of like midfield as well, right? Like whereas Gargants don't really play that game, they're going to like be running off one onto the other, and so you can kind of move. After you.
They throw rocks. So
they do throw rocks. That's true. They do throw rocks. Yeah, not quite the same. A couple of idiots throwing rocks versus elite elves doing that like scene from Lord of the Rings 2.
Oh
yeah.
I always I don't see the new Hercules film. There's a bit where he goes like that, and all the arrows like rain down upon him. It's great. That's what I imagine.
Exactly like that. I still think they're rubbish. Glowdown in the chat. I just want to be clear about that. Me and Matt don't agree, but like Matt's played it.
The person that thinks Blade Lords are good, but yeah.
Yeah. Me, we're in different camps, but like it's his show to talk about. Okay, so what list have you got for us? And I'm going to put these. If you guys have been watching, I'm going to put these on thehonestwargamer.com so you guys can check them out. Of course, so go and find the links for that in the show notes and other places. So what list?
I've got 3 for you. I've got a sort of a slight evolution on my one. What I'll probably be like looking to play in the future. I've got a fun cow one. I've got a Teclas one. So I'll start you off with sort of like what I've been playing. So Lumineth Rome Lords, obviously, we're playing in Hellon because we're going to be using all those wind units and getting that move after the combat phase is key. Your grand strategy for Lumineth should basically always be prize sorcery. Every time, because you have so many wizards. I've never not got it in a game. Because it's just so easy to keep something alive at the end of the game. So, leaders, Severith, straight in there. In a Warlord Battalion. Scenari Cathorla in a Warlord Battalion with the Metallith Dust. Now, this is your tax artifact. It's okay. So once per game, -1 to hit and wound on a unit in 3 inches in the combat phase. Whatever. Cathal has got Total Eclipse, and I've taken the spell enhancement across the whole army, so he's also got Speed of Heesh. Then I've got Hurricane Wind Mage, who's the general, whose job is to be the Shrine Caddy. And there's a reason for that, and I'll go on to when I talk about the ruse later. So he's command trait is Sky Race Grand Champion, which gives you a once per game reroll cast, reroll a run, or reroll a charge. You're only taking it for the reroll cast, basically. And he knows Howling Gale, so that's the spell that stops you doing command abilities, and Guiding Flurries, which is a spell that either gives +1 to hit, or extends the range of your shooting attack by 6 inches. That's pretty key. So they're all in Warlord. Now, Battle Line, you've got 10 Hurricane Wind charges. So I'm going down from 15 to 10, but I think this is so I can include more Sentinels, because I think we're moving to that. Well, we're regrettably moving into that high armor save meta, so, Wind charges stonks down a little bit. Sentinel mortal wounds will be more and more useful. So they're Hunters of the Heartland, so that if they get roared at, well, they can't be roared at, basically, so they can always do the retreat from combat move, which is very key. Then we've got 20 Wardens in Hunters, same thing. So they know Speed of Heesh and Protection of Heesh. Protection of Heesh is the 5-up DPR spell. It's like the mini one. There's a mini one, so there's the big one that Teclas knows, and then there's a mini one that's only 9-inch wholly within bubble, still a 5-up DPR. And then Speed of Heesh is a key spell, doubles your movement. Then we've got 20 Sentinels in Hunters of the Heartland, with Total Eclipse and Lambent Light. Then I've got 10 Sentinels in the Warlord Battalion to fill that out, which know Levitate and Lambent Light. Then I've got 10 more Sentinels in the Warlord that know Speed of Heesh and Lambent Light. So I'm stacking up on Lambent Light and Speed of Heesh a lot here, and that's for redundancy. So you can kill something, and I go, great, my core combos, they still totally function. I've got, I've not lost any efficiency.
I think that's fascinating. Like, just to touch on that a moment. Whereas, like, in the mirror, let's say I'm playing with I don't know, anything. Yeah, like my wizard or like my character that does a thing is the one character that does a thing. If you shoot them off and you've got like the perfect option to do that in Sentinels, you're the winner. Whereas all of your army has all of the buffs available to it. Like, even if you can't unsynergize the army very well.
Yeah. Unless you'd have to target kill all the casters, which is very difficult. Obviously, because you'd have to alpha the whole army basically. But so great redundancy. And then I've got 3 endless spells. I've got Cogs, I've got Life Swarm, and I've got Umbral Spell Portal.
Okay.
And Cogs obviously is there to give access to all those extra spells, so you just cast a load of spells. Emerald Life Swarm is there. It's great. It works great with Rally on the Wardens. So someone comes in, and this is a key thing with Helon. So if someone comes and hits your Wardens, you can then spend a CP, move the Wardens out of combat, so that next turn you're able to rally if you want to.
Oh, wow.
Because you're not stuck 3 inches of them.
That's clever.
So then you can rally, Life Swarm them back, and you can get those of them back. Again, that Life Swarm's so good, because again, you can bring back wind charges then. It's just really good. Umbral Spell Portal is there for Lambent Light, and also potentially maybe to put Howling Gale through if you want to stop command abilities. So Lambent Light is a key spell to how the list works. It's a shooting list. It's a precision damage list. You're trying to remove your opponent's key pieces with this list, and then tag them with Severus, and so they can't engage you in combat until as late as possible. And then when they do engage you in combat, you've got that Warden Wall there, sitting there in Shining Company with potentially a DPR save, with loads of save stacks that can absorb that, and then buy you more time to take off whatever it is that's fighting got to your lines. It plays as a sort of it's this castle that lets you reach out with the ruse, and the key combo in the list is the ruse. So obviously you Speed of Heesh the ruse, and then you put the Wind Mage in the shrine, so it gives it, because obviously it's a garrison, it means a bigger base. The Wind Mage ability is only 6 inches wholly within, so to fit 15 ruse or 10-15 ruse within 6, you can put them around the shrine, and suddenly that becomes very easy.
Okay, yeah.
To give them that fly, to give them that extra movement. So then you cast Speed of Heesh, and they move 32. They shoot something, they take off a key target. Severith usually likes to go up with them and be their buddy to give the Hell on Command ability. And then they can either charge something, maybe fight it if it's, small target that they can reliably kill. And then they use the Hell on Command ability, and they can make a move at the end of the combat phase. Potentially, if you just use your pile out, because you don't have to pile in any direction with the wind unit, so you can pile out straight away, so they don't even have to fight you. You can charge, pile out 6, then potentially move 32 inches back, or 32 inches to anywhere you like on the board. So you can either move back behind your castle, or you can move like maybe 32 inches onto that objective over there that they've left unguarded, or something like that. And it allows you to be in places so you don't have to fight on the objectives necessarily, if that makes sense. It gives you like total flexibility.
Yeah, you're not committed to like, I'm going over here. You could be like, I'll just be wherever I need to be.
Yeah, I'll be here now, and then in 5 minutes I'll be over there when I need to be. And there's redundancy in that as well. So even if you fail Speed of Fiche, or it gets unbound, you've got Guiding Flurry, so you can extend their shooting range to make them 18 inches. So chances are you get one of them off. And then there's no way of screening them out. And then obviously you've got that precision mortal wound damage coming from the Sentinels. You Lambent Light that key target. You go, right, that needs to die. Sentinels will just lift off with mortal wounds. And it's rinse and repeat. You can usually kill 2, or sometimes if you get lucky, 3 decent like key pieces a turn. Obviously Sentinels, massive character suppression. You can't hide from them. They're going to get you. They're coming to get you. So that's how it works basically. It's a shooting castle that you essentially can't catch.
Honestly, it looks like one of the most fun lists to play with. Like, every time I see it, I'm like, that must be so much fun. And then counterpoint, it looks like one of the worst lists to play against. Like, as a
you're not going to make a lot of friends playing this list.
But like, it looks like you're so dynamic on the tabletop. You've got so many options. You could do so many things. Like, it gives you so many choices. Which ultimately, as a gamer, like why wouldn't you want to have the cheat codes to like play the game, basically? Which is what it kind of feels like you have. But like
that's what I love about it, because it's an army like. For those that know me, I used to play Seraphon quite a lot, and it feels like you don't really have to play Seraphon anymore. I don't think it's a bit of like an autopilot list sometimes, and I like armies where you have to like really play, like, because it forces you to get better as well as a gamer. It forces you to like improve your skills and like be tighter with movement and stuff like that. So that's why I like it. Yeah.
All right, great. Sounds fun. Can't wait. If you guys, it'll be on the website, like I say, so you check that out. So talk to me about cows. How do I not have a cow, man?
So, well, we're talking Alumnia here. So we've got an Alumnia list.
Okay.
Again, prize sorcery. So you've got an Alarith Stone Mage in Battle Regiment. So he's a general. He's got Burning Gaze, which is a mortal wound on a 2+ in combat. It's okay. It's the tax command trait. You've got a Waystone. Now, this gives you a free once per game, like 12-inch teleport. So you can only teleport 12 inches. But it's a good way of like getting him up, somewhere key in the movement phase, because Stone Mages aren't that fast. Then you've got a Caligrave in Battle Regiment. Who knows Speed of Fiche? Then you've got 20 Wardens in a Battle Regiment. So this is basically, we're going for low drops here. You've got, again, Protection of Fiche for that DPR save. And you've got 10 Wardens with Lambent Light. You've got 10 Sentinels with Speed of Fiche, 10 Sentinels with Lambent Light, 10 Sentinels with Total Eclipse. You'll see those 30 Sentinels, I think, pop up in a lot of competitive Lumineth lists now, because they're just going to be needed. They're just going to be needed. Is like going into this meta that we're going to be going into this high armor save meta. And then you've got 2 Alarith Spirit of the Mountains in an Alpha Beast pack. So that's the pre-game move.
Oh, wow. Okay. Fun.
The D6 pre-game move. And then you've got Cogs and Spell Portal. And so this is a bit of a fun, like fight in the middle list. Maybe it's not like necessarily the most OP thing out there, but I think it's good fun. And it also catches a lot of people out. So the idea with this list is that you get a pre-game move from all your Scenari stuff and your Venari stuff. So if you want, you can pre-game your Wardens 6 inches, and then you can move them 6. Maybe Speed of Fiche them, so they move 12, so suddenly they're 18 inches away from your line. And, so they can be in your face basically turn 1. So you're trying to go first with this and get those spirits up the board, get those Wardens up the board, and just generally smash face. And this plays into one of the Lumineth's key allegiance abilities that I haven't mentioned so far, which is whenever you fight in the combat phase, you can pick 2 units to fight and they fight in a order of your choice, one after the other. So obviously, it goes without saying that fighting with 2 cows, one after the other, is really good.
Yeah, of course.
And those cows, stone units, they're good for fighting objectives because they can push units off objectives with their allegiance ability. So stone units, after they fought, they go, get away from me, and they force you to do a 3-inch retreat move. And then you can also optionally pile in an inch if you want. So it means you can just push things off objectives. It's great into Gargants because obviously you can push them off objectives that they're trying to stand on.
Especially when they just like be clever and they just toe in or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. So it catches people out. You're trying to be, you can't like toe in and be clever. You just go, no, get off my objective, get off my land. And then you've got those sentinels shooting over the top, giving you that character suppression, that range support. And the stone mage sort of bodies around with the cows and make sure they're always at top profile. So you're always fighting on that, peak efficiency. So that's a bit of a simple fun list. Alumnia is great fun if anyone who wants to play it. Run and charge on like 20, 30 wardens, run and charge on a cow. It catches so many people off guard. And also, the key thing about the Alumnia command ability is that it's done in the charge phase. So you can still auto-run something 6 and then use the run and charge.
Oh, yeah, so you can do both. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. Especially with like Speedy Heesh or something like that. Like, you're just going so fast. And 30 Wardens slap. They'll slap cheeks like no one's business. All right, sweet. That sounds fun. That sounds really fun, actually. We've got people in the chat really excited about that one. And then Teclas, our man, the bearded warrior.
Now, I want to talk about the most handsome man in Warhammer here, and that's Obeyed.
What a babe! What a babe!
London Guild, what a babe! He was running something slightly, very similar to this at the London Open, and he went 3-2 with it. But I think he had some bad luck. He was talking to me about it, and I think this can easily go like 4-1. So it's a hell on list again. Again, price source. Again, you've got that inspired triumph. Teclas, straight up in a battle regiment.
Okay.
Hurricane Windmage in a battle regiment. He's a general. He's got that Sky Race Grand Champion reroll. He's got the Medlith Dust. He's got Guiding Flurry, so +1 to hit or extend the range. You've got the Wind Chargers, 10 Wind Chargers again in a battle regiment, 20 Wardens in a battle regiment, and then you've got those 30 Sentinels in a battle regiment, and you've Spell Portable. And they know all the usual spells: Speed of Heat, Lambent Light, blah, blah, blah. And this is interesting because it plays like the other Hell on list. But I think going forward, I'm going to definitely try and give this a go. Because Teclas is very, very keen to those mega casters. He gives you total magic dominance. So he's more reliability. And he brings, most importantly, Teclas, and also Unbind. So he's stopping your opponent doing that key spell. It's very, very good into stuff like, Zinch Archeon, because then you can stop him doing like that reroll save spell. It's very good into, like anything that you need that magic dominance. And he brings that army-wide 5 up. Suddenly your brews are more survivable. You can guarantee getting those key spells off. You can bring that spell ignore. Teclas is, you either play Teclas or you don't. And like he completely changes the way I think you play the army. Also, Teclas in Helon has a few little cheeky things. So obviously he gets an extra. Teclas has a shooting attack. He gets an extra shot in 3 inches. So suddenly, if you unleash Hell with Teclas, he's doing 2 shots, hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s, -3 rend, d6 damage. That catches people out. If suddenly you don't want to charge Teclas as much. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course.
And also Teclas being able to move out of combat. You can yeet Teclas 24 inches forward if you speed a Hisham. Clear up something over there, then you can move him 24 inch back to where he needs to be. He benefits a lot from Helon. Yeah. So it's just a little. It just what's the word? It just gives you that reliability that if you do kind of.
Yeah, I feel like that's more effective than some of the ways I've seen him play, like where he just castles and babysits everything else. But it's so many points to babysit that you feel like he needs to go out there and do more, right?
Exactly, and Helon lets him go out and do more, and then still be where he needs to be.
Yeah. That's really clever.
Also, he gives you access to a monster, so immediately you're getting easier access to battle tactics. You're not ever like, I find struggling for battle tactics, because you're very good at like removing like slaying the warlord is very easy because you've got precision damage. You can always kill a battle line if you want, because again you've got like scalpel damage. So I think you're never struggling for battle tactics, but it gives you easy access to monstrous takeover, which means it's just like in those missions like but what's the new Star Strike, whatever it's called. You can score early game necessarily just actually no, you need objectives, but like you can score early game on stuff like stuff where you don't want to be getting up the board necessarily immediately, and obviously it gives you access to monstrous reactions and stuff, so it's all great.
Amazing. Okay, yeah, sounds really fun. And Shugo's in the chat has just been inspired by that, so that's fun. All right, well, I'll put all the lists on the Honest Wargamer website once Matt sends them to me, so you guys can check them out, and you can oh, perfect. You can leave comments and and just get in touch with Matt if you want. I'll include the link to his socials below. Matt, thanks for taking us on a journey. Yeah, thanks for taking us on a journey. It's been such a delight to listen to you talk about it, and obviously it sounds very exciting. Like honestly, like so many options, like is all I can hear, and which is great. And I know on the flip side of that, for other people, it'll be like, oh, it feels oppressive. But like, I mean, that's just the duality of what it is, right? Like someone has to have. If someone has everything, then you obviously have less. You got any shout outs before we go out today?
Just shout out all the Bad Moon Loon boys. Can't speak. Shout out to Tom Gilboy, the sexiest man in Warhammer. I believe he's getting married soon, so congrats to him. Also shout out to all the SLL guys, Hugh, Bad Moon, and also shout out to Alex for running a great event in Mancunian Carnage. It was really nice to be back there, just the first sort of big size 2-dayer for a while. It was just really good fun, lots of great people. Yeah.
Lovely. I'm going to shout out Arthur Vergalis, because I have to at this point. That's the way it works. Loads of love to Twitch chat. Thanks for hanging out. If you are watching this back on YouTube, it's a podcast. If you want to download it as a podcast as well. This is all possible because of everyone on the Honest Wargamer Patreon. So huge thank you to all of them. Big shout out to the Twitch chat. Love you tons. Look after yourselves, and thanks for listening to Honest Wargamer. See you guys soon.
Thank you.